Ash, and then I think we'll let you go quite soon. But I know that Ash is going to have so much to say about this. So.
Too long. I'm fuming, Michael. Absolutely fuming. I mean, so the point that I would like to make, just picking up on what Nalini said, it used to be that the defence of the police was that in instances of violence, well, there are a few bad apples. Now the defence is, as America erupts into flames and you see just how militarised policing has become across the nation, now the defence is there are a few good apples. And the effect is the same. It's to stop you asking serious questions of systems, of whether they have been able to reform themselves, and what it is you do when systems have proved that they are unable to reform themselves. So that's why we get stuck in one or two of these very individualized frames. But I know you want me to talk a bit about the aspect of Acevedo's comments where he talked about it's not our communities kicking off, it's white guys with skateboards. Well, actually, a quick point of fact, it's not the white guys with skateboards escalating the violence, it's the white guys in uniforms with nightsticks and rubber bullets and tear gas and so on and so on and so on. The escalation has been where there have been gatherings of people, that interaction that lots of us are familiar with, where police amass, there's shoving, there's provocation, and then there's a full all-out assault on the crowd, right? That's the pattern of what's been going on. But even if I'm to take this seriously for a second, one of the things that I want to say is we have to ask ourselves a question about why is it that people take a political event and they sublimate it into culture wars. It's because culture wars is a much more slippery and amenable framework because it can go any way you want. So when you're speaking to a crowd of older and sincerely very scared, very angry, very hurt people of colour, and what you're trying to do is separate them off from a younger generation who's a lot more militant, is you play it off as a racial and I think inherently classed antagonism. So it's not you, blue collar, people of colour who are hardworking, who have suffered nobly. It's these, weekend anarchists with the facial piercings and the purple hair. It's just another form of respectability politics. And then the flip side, for talking to white audiences about anger, is that the black people that you see on the street are not a legitimate form of black anger, right? They're thugs, they're gangsters, they're opportunistic looters. Look at them going for the Nikes, and it all goes into these racialized stereotypes of essentially the kind of uncivilized nature of black people. And that's what you can do when you sublimate this into a culture wars framework. Now, all of us are aware of those little pockets of black bloc who just are steaming in, don't do much organiser work, and love a scuff, right? We all know that that's true. But we also know that there are networks of radical white people who do put in work when it comes to immigration detention, who do put in work when it comes to policing, when it comes to forms of community organising. And to treat this as one of the same because there's a shared, aesthetic and there's a shared skin tone is completely dishonest. And what it also does is that it erases people of colour as political agents. Because actually, those first nights in Minneapolis, I didn't see any white people with skateboards. Did you know? I saw black people who were sick of seeing their neighbours, their family members, their husbands, their brothers die at the hands of police. And I don't think it is a bad thing if we see white people on these protests as well as people of colour. Because what that shows me is that there's a sense of shared humanity. That my humanity as a person of colour is the same as yours, and so if it is, my life is taken away from me, you will be out there saying that the system has broken down and we should not respect it anymore, the same as you would if it was a white person. I think it's a good thing. An interesting thing to watch out for is the way some of this might make it over to the UK, because what we love doing in the UK is importing American cultural framings for thinking about the criminal justice system. If you read Stuart Hall's Policing Crisis, phenomenal work from 1978, looks at the mugging moral panic, which basically took a US narrative sort of formed in Oakland and New York in particular, imported it into the UK to justify a much more interventionist criminal justice system, interventionist styles of policing. When it comes to American culture wars, so not just the, fucking briefcase toting chino wearers at Turning Point, but also this whole idea of cultural Marxism and what's going on in our universities. That's another element in which you've seen an American culture war imported into the UK. And I think that when it comes to the delegitimization of people of color and our anger at racist state apparatus, we will see more of this kind of slippage and this kind of cultural, wars framing here, alongside all the stuff that we're already familiar with in terms of Antifa as it's the first time I've known anarchists to organise anything, let alone a terrorist organisation. But improvements,
Nalini, a very, very brief comment on white boys with skateboards, and then we're going to go to the UK context and the protests that happened here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think this is, at least in New York, has been the most multiracial protests and manifestations that I've seen in a really long time. And there are definitely, I will say there are definitely in some places, like in Minneapolis, when I'm hearing from my friends that they're feeling targeted by both the police and white supremacists who are coming out at night. And so those are the people that we need to worry about. I actually saw also a lot of Black kids on skateboards. And so I just think that I think that these comments are just set up to have a racial divide. There's the good protester, there's a bad protester, there's the peaceful one, there's a violent one. And it goes into, as Ash said, all of the cultural divides that are deep within our country and have been deep within the response to the Trump administration and protests against, because Antifa has become this shadowy set of organized institutions and funded by apparently George Soros, which we know is absolutely false. But I think for me at the end of the day, it's just these are just ways to spin the narrative, and the media is doing that, and the media is also not showing it's kind of riot porn that they're showing right now, and it bleeds into that because they're what's this the catchy story? They didn't catch us singing. Do you hear the people sing from Les Miserables down Flatbush Avenue yesterday before the police escalated? They didn't catch us dancing to trap music with the youngins leading to trap music and just dancing with Black joy. They didn't catch that because that isn't in their narrative of these are good protesters, these are violent protesters that the media, that the administration, liberals, that a lot of people in the state are putting out there.